playing against Spain, and they will also be praying to God that they be the only African team to reach the quarterfinals. That is after the exit of all African teams. That match against the great Spain will be right here on KBC Channel 1 at exactly 6 p.m. But there is also another match in the offing where Portugal will be facing Switzerland later on in the night at about 10 p.m. And for all that action, kindly do get a radio and tune in to all the KBC radio stations who will be live with that match. But for the first one, Morocco team versus the Spain, we will be beaming that live from Qatar. Well, away from this great soccer and the World Cup that is still happening in Qatar, a lot is happening in the political spheres. The IEBC commissioners under fire. President William Ruto did suspend them last week and set up a tribunal led by appellate court judge Agre Muchelule, who are supposed to probe them with results expected a little later. But from the political world, the heat is so much that some of the commissioners have decided to exit the kitchen. That is, two commissioners have already led by Vice Chair Juliana Cherera and also Justice Nyagaya, leaving two embattled commissioners. The question is, they have already resigned. Is there a need for a tribunal? Well, a lot of Kenyans have different and varied opinions, and we are supposed to be joined by an advocate of the High Court. We are hoping that he will still be making aid. That is Gibson Gisore, who is a constitutional lawyer, to help us put things into perspective as to what happens next. They have already exited office. The tribunal is set up. Two are still there. And also, another thing, we have by-elections in the offing, and what happens if we do not get a quorum? According to the Constitution, we have to have at least 3 commissioners for anything to happen at IEBC. We'll be putting all that into perspective, just a tip of the iceberg. Away from that, we have a lot happening in the country. We also have the latest entrant into the money markets, that is the hustler funds. And something that is happening every day is that we've been giving a real up-to-date information in regards to how much people have taken, how much has been saved, and more so, how are Kenyan taking, or what is the feel on the ground? Is the hustler fund really working? And also in the political sphere, we are looking at the executive. Well, yesterday President William Ruto was in that function at the Safari Park Hotel during the NCAJ report, the annual report, which was the inaugural report. Yesterday said that we do not have any dalliance with the judiciary. What we are doing is that we are actually trying to help them actualize. That's just some of the things that we'll be looking at in this first hour. I have a scientist in the studio, but before I introduce him in the second hour, it's all about the holidays. Almost 2 months holiday. That's a long time. A lot can happen. And looking at some of the things that we are witnessing, SGBV, I do remember even yesterday the CJ did talk about is that the age bracket is going down. So how do we protect our kids, and how do we ensure that we keep them busy so that they do not become empty minds, which are the devil's workshop? Well, that is a little bit later, but the state of the nation right now. My name is Ben Troy-Njue. Yes, Lenso Dingo has just joined us in the sign language interpretation, and also joining us is a scientist. Yes, but one thing he's also a governance expert. He knows a lot about what is happening in the political and social spheres in the country. He's not a new face. He's a resident analyst, Dr. Churchill Saoke. Dr. Churchill Saoke is also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. We're hoping to be joined by an advocate of the High Court and a constitutional lawyer a little bit later. But first things first, let me introduce Churchill Saoke. Karibu sana, Doc.
Thank you so much, Ben. Good morning.
It's been a while.
I know.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
A lot has been happening, and maybe perhaps we can start with the IEBC. We have 4 commissioners who, if you look at the Kenya Kwanza, let's be honest enough. They want these guys out, and even the leader of majority said the best thing the commissioners can do to save in the taxpayers' money, to save Kenyans, all that, they just need to exit office. But even if they decide, all of them, the 4 of them, to just exit office, a lot of questions will be raised. What exactly transpired? I remember the Apex Court pronounced itself on the matter and said, indeed, there is some issues at the IEBC which they need to relook, or need to actually clear before we head to any other elections, which showed that there is issues, there is trouble at IEBC. But looking at what is currently transpiring, Kenyans want answers. What exactly happened? Is it the Cherera 4? Is it the other 3? What exactly happened? Kenyans want to know that, but they've just decided to exit office and to save them, they said, to save them the anguish of going through a tribunal. Like to take your sentiments on the same.
Yes, thanks, Troy. First of all, it's important to appreciate that an electoral commission is a very important body for the democratic progress of any nation, and specifically when you look at Kenya being a leader in the region, the integrity of the electoral body reflects deeply the face of an electoral process, and by extension, the legitimacy of a government that comes into place. And therefore, of course, we've gone through an electoral period, extremely a divisive one, which of course ended into the Supreme Court. And the nation is of course have been divided on which side, or those who are supporting the Cherera 4 and those who are supporting the Chebukati 3. And I think in my opinion, I've held a very strong opinion that it's important that the country undertakes this process with a lot of sobriety and a lot of independence of thought, because the law is a very funny thing. One time the law favors you, another time that same law axes you. And institutions as well are also very dynamic. They tend to align themselves with systems and political, the politics of the day. With that in mind, even as the commission go through the tribunal, and of course the Cherera 4 being taken to the tribunal as had been recommended by JLAG, it's very important that process becomes one that puts the country first, in my opinion. Of course, there is still people who strongly believe that the Cherera 4 needs to go. There are those who still believe that they should stay. It's still within the line of the political divide as to whether you supported Azimio or you supported UDA, Kenya Kwanza. But you see, when we look at the commission with that divide, we lose sight of it all. We lose sight of it all.
And still on the same, when I remember back in 2007, we had the Samuel Kivuitu-led commission that used to be the ECK, Electoral Commission of Kenya. We had so much issues, and even the country was in the brink of anarchy because of the 2007 election. And everybody said these people need to go, and indeed he did go. Then we had Isaac Hassan, the interim independent electoral commission. We had the Chicken Gate scandal back then, and we said they have to go, and they did go. Then we enter the strong will, Chebukati. Remember, 2017. Chebukati must go. Chebukati must go. But he said, I'm not going anywhere.
Yes.
And we still had issues as well.
So at least Chebukati has been able to stay, and the Cherera 4, maybe they are seeing that, like the 2 of them who have resigned, they already have analyzed and seen that there is no strong political will to support their position or their stance as is, and that maybe the process that they want to go through in the tribunal is already predetermined. So maybe that's their thinking. And so they think that maybe the best thing is to resign and not to face the tribunal as a commissioner. So because if they think that the process is already predetermined, then it is needless to to present yourself before it.
And looking at the political sphere,
Yeah.
let's just be very honest.
Yeah.
Their goose is cooked.
Yeah.
Looking at this report, after the JLAC report, the report by the tribunal will end up in parliament. And if a vote is going to be taken, and looking at the sides, Kenya Kwanza has the numbers. Looking at what the leader of majority
Absolutely.
said, they need to go. So it's more or less we have a predetermined outcome. And unfortunately, we have politicized the IEBC to quite deep levels, if you ask me.
I think maybe it would have been important if the members of parliament would have approached the JLAC by bringing the whole commission, bring the whole commission into sort of like trial, in my opinion, because
all of them,
yes, exactly, because that then would have sort of it would have sort of removed the perception of witch hunt, because you see, those who are for the Cherera 4 are because they think that there is witch hunt. They're being witch hunted because they never supported the regime. But and then even if they were wrong, even if the 4 were wrong, then that perception still makes us to lose sight of the objectivity. All right? The fact is, the judiciary, which holds highest level of integrity in terms of decision making and administration of justice in this country, has already alluded to the fact that there are certain things that need to be done in the IEBC. And for that to be undertaken, objectivity of the process has to be very held with sanctity. And you have to approach the commission with the perspective that nobody was right and nobody was wrong. We just need to make things right for our country, as had been recommended by the judiciary. And
indeed, and a constitutional lawyer would have really assisted us unpack this, but it's something that Kenyans are keeping a close eye on. We have the Cherera 4 and we have, for lack of a better word, and the Chebukati 3, of which, remember, they are all supposed to exit office in the next couple of days. We have by-elections. And 2 have already resigned. So if 2 resign, we have 3 commissioners who are all exiting office. Could we be staring at a constitutional crisis at the IEBC? And those are the issues that the country must look at. And that's why I'm looking at it from objectivity perspective. Because, of course, the fears as to why maybe from within political circles, why the quarters would want Cherera 4 to go, is because they would hold institutional memory which would influence future administrative processes of the commission, just the same way Chebukati and his 2 colleagues did, where they were able to influence a lot of things to an extent that by the time the rest of the other people come, they have no option but just to move through with whatever has already been laid down. So those kind of fears are the ones that maybe are being alluded to in certain quarters, that are making the need to accelerate the process of removal of some of the 4 commissioners, so that they do not have control of the commission when the other 3 exits. Remember that once the 3 other commissioners exits, the time frame for having filling those gaps is not going to be a short time. It's going to take some little bit of time. And within that frame of time, a lot of things can happen within a commission. Even that can be brought out of what happened. The things that maybe are being held in, that should not come out to the public. So there's a lot of fears that could be the undercurrent of what is currently happening. And of course, the Cherera 4, or maybe when you just have maybe 2 commissioners, you remember that there were some by-elections that were held by the three commissioners before. So we still are likely still to have even the 2 still hold some of the elections. And because I don't expect, in my opinion, we will not really expect a constitutional crisis. That will be too much to say, because there is already a government in place. There are systems that can be able to fill certain gaps, because I think that just the constituencies where we do not have
we do not have MPs or we do not have MCAs. Those are the ones that you need a commission to fill. But you see, a constitutional crisis will be one that we don't have a president, we don't have a government. We have a government in place. Yeah.
And looking at the three, everyone, okay, mostly the Kenya Kwanza divide want the four out, and they have made that numerous times. And if at all they are going to go, remember, we had the Supreme Court, the apex court in the country, talked about IEBC. They really need to keep their house in order. They never talked about commissioners resigning or anything. The court was actually pronounced itself that a lot of reforms are needed at the IEBC. But if at all the reforms that will be called out will be exiting of office since the time of Kivuito of 2007 till now. When are we going to be having a solid IEBC that commissioners will now be taking the work with some fear is that this process could be politicized, and I could be exiting office even before my 6-year permanent one term is there. Could we be setting that precedent?
You know, those are the things that, from where I stand, I will strongly believe that, and I've always believed that democracy is a work in progress. And when you look at all those transitions that have happened all through those commissions, a lot of reform work have been undertaken in the commission. To an extent, remember there were times when ballot papers could get lost within, you know, they could be thrown into the sugarcane plantations and the tea plantations, and new ballot papers arrive in the city. There were times when some could be hijacked along the way. There are some times when even returning officers could be locked up for some time. But then, right now, we are now talking about ballot papers, or I mean Form 34As and Bs being changed somewhere if it really happened within technology. So we have advanced in many ways. And I think as time continues, Kenyans are more vigilant. And the more vigilant we are, the more we are building our democratic process. And that vigilance is very significant. And, you know, it will be interesting to see, of course, the opposition has alluded to the fact that they want to bring out bare what happened during the election. All these are part and parcel of making our democracy better. So that, remember, the sanctity of democracy is when your vote counts. And that is the desire and the aspiration of every democracy. So we are advancing towards that direction through all these reform processes. It is part and parcel of the desire of the Kenyan people to get the sanctity of the Kenyan vote. So we should support it. We should always support it, as, you know, whenever it comes, but with a lot of objectivity.
Do you believe the 6-year one term is appropriate, or maybe we should have, maybe like we usually do, 3 years renewable contract or something, because there is a 6 years and that's it, you're gone? You know, that could be challenged a lot, because if after 3 years you haven't delivered, whether you in scandal or not, it's quite different from a 6-year non-renewable term.
You know, I think from my engagement in political processes, one of the things I've come to realize is that sometimes the political elite tend to, they overemphasize on the commission, the commissioners themselves, and forget that the commissioners lead a commission. And when an electoral process becomes faulty or it becomes successful, it's not just the commissioners, but the whole commission, which comprises of the secretariat and a host of team of people who are working within the grassroots to deliver an electoral process that is free, fair, and verifiable. And I think that for quite some time, there has always been, you know, the whole quest of changing commissioners. It blinds us from where the problem is, because the commissioners are up here, but what happens beyond that, down into the clerks and the the clerks and the returning officers and all those people, what happens? What has been their role in making the electoral process good or bad? So those kind of interrogations are what I think will objectively even help advance this much better. Because if we leave it to the commissioners themselves only, then it means that you're blinded to the real truth, because the devil is in the details. Exactly.
Wow. Well, we are keeping a keen eye on the IEBC tribunal, and still on matters touching on polls. And I believe yesterday the president didn't pronounce himself in regards to the judiciary. He mentioned and said that I'm attending all these judiciary functions because I want to assist them in executing their mandate and clearing the air, by saying that he's never even made a single call to anyone in the judiciary to tell them this is what I want you to do. But looking at even the tabloids and looking at the social media, people are talking about these people, what exactly is happening between the executive and the judiciary. But the president even made a joke yesterday saying that my friend, the president of LSK, Eric Theuri, took him to court a week ago in regards to the PS nomination list, and say that if I'm wrong and if the court pronounce themselves on the same, then well, anybody could be wrong, anybody could be right. But people are uncomfortable about the dalliance between the executive and the judiciary.
People are right to be worried about that dalliance, in terms of, because you see the Constitution laid out the whole question of all the three government arms being independent in their decision making. But the independence does not necessarily mean that you got to sit somewhere in three stones and not meet on points of interdependence and collaboration. It's about you understanding your mandate and ensuring that you execute your mandate as per the Constitution, even within the frames of interdependence of government. And, you know, the president being a politician, it works in his best interest if the judiciary supports him, and he would act in any way that seduces the judiciary to be the friend of the executive. So he's right to do whatever he's doing. It is upon the judiciary to ensure that they know how far they can be able to go. Okay? Because they are the custodians of the law. And they can be able to say that, you know what, okay, the executive, we are working, we have very good working frames. But I think on this one, you are wrong. On this one, you are wrong. So it's still upon the judiciary to still look at how far the executive is coming and ask themselves, do you want to give in? Or do you want to step back and stand on what is right? Because as a, you know, it's just the same way as a politician. When a politician comes to you, he wants your vote.
Yes.
Is the politician wrong to come and ask you for your vote?
No.
He's not wrong. It is up to you, the owner of that vote, to say, I'm giving you the vote or I'm not giving you the vote. So that is what is happening. The president is just creating a working relationship with the judiciary. It is upon the judiciary to ensure that that working relationship does not jeopardize the execution of its mandate. Because they have to be the custodians of the law. If they are making any ruling, they have to make it in the interest of Kenyans, irrespective. Because you see, for example, funding of the judiciary, it is not something that should come because you have a cordial relationship with the executive. It is the responsibility of government to fund every arms of government. So if you take that as a favor, then you miss the point. So that's what I think. It's upon the judiciary and all the other arms of government to see how far can they be able to go to defend the Constitution of Kenya. Because in the ultimate end, that is what now Kenyans will define them for. Otherwise, the president being good to the judiciary, the president being good to the legislator, it is in his right to do that.
All right. And away from that, let's look at the Hustler Fund. It was launched sometimes last week, and Kenyans have quite embraced it, looking at the digits that we've been given by the ministry or by the government in regards to how much money is being taken each and every day. We've already hit the over 1 billion shillings, but a lot of things have emerged. I actually tried it. It's the star 254 hash. And followed the prompts, but okay, they never got back. But I just wanted to know exactly how the Hustler Fund is working, and who wouldn't want some few coins. And the 2 weeks, you have been out there. What are people talking about in regards to the Hustler Fund? And we would like to sample some of your responses in any of our social media platforms as we are live. Have you gotten it? How have you perceived it? And still on that, the element of saving fast, that is something that we've never experienced in any type of loan here in the country. Yeah,
I think that is one peculiar thing with the Hustler Fund. But then I've you know, there are still a few issues that, of course, people have raised, and one is the legal regime upon which the fund operates. Because you see, every government fund or institution must have a legal regime upon which it is laid, the foundation upon which it is laid. And there have been questions around that. Where is it? What is the, you know, it's like just like the Oduma card when it was initially started in the previous regime. It didn't have a legal regime. And then with that not being there, then it lays a foundation for fraudulency. Because if there is no that legal backing, then, you know, assuming somebody who has taken 1,000 shillings or has taken 500 shillings does not repay it, of course there are collaterals that have been created there through the platform. What can you do to that person? So that's one weakness that maybe as time goes by it will be sorted. The other thing is that, you know, when Kenyans want money, however small it is, trust me. I mean, people used to Fuliza. When you look at Fuliza, people used to take Fuliza as small as 100 shillings. And the Fuliza was not necessarily meant maybe for you to do business or something, but maybe you want to pay up something and you don't have money at that time. So that was the need for Fuliza at that time. And I think that one of the biggest, one of the things that has become an antidote for the Hustler Fund, for most of the people who were anticipating, I have asked myself, and I asked guys questions, those who felt disappointed about and had high expectations about Hustler Fund. I asked them, so what were you expecting? Were you expecting free money? And if it was free money, how much were you expecting out of it? Were you expecting 20,000, 10,000 free money?
Yes, a lot of people are expecting a lot of money. I know. To be very honest.
But now the challenge is, how sustainable is it to be given free money, 10,000, 20,000? How sustainable is it?
And remember, it's taxpayers' money.
Exactly. So I think that because of campaign promises, there were very high expectations of people about what a Hustler Fund will be. And I think it is because it was based on, we will bring a Hustler Fund that helps you to boost your businesses. And people will not expect 1,000 shillings or 500 shillings to be money for business.
Yes.
So I think that is one of the other antidote. So if it would have been repackaged to be something that cushions you, just like Fuliza. You know, Fuliza, people do not want Fuliza to be a fund for establishing a business. So their expectations were lower. So I think that is the other thing. But I can tell you that however small it is, people have taken it, and you have seen through the reports.
Have taken over 1 billion shillings.
Over 1 billion shillings.
Been issues. And yes, indeed, you might receive the 500 shillings, the 600 shillings, the 1,000 shillings, which might not quite do exactly what you wanted. But looking at this money, this is 1 billion shillings that was not in the economy, and now it is in the economy. In as much as it is little in terms of what one wants to do with the money, this money has been pumped into the economy. Looking at what we are experiencing, recession, we have a lot of issues.
And you know,
it's a plus for the economy.
I agree in terms of the circulation of the money. And you know, the other thing that maybe even government should do, and I think they've been doing, is to accelerate just that ease of the economy again, is funding or paying up the bills that have not been paid. Okay? Because then that, however small it is, paying it up and you know, having money into the economy and circulation of funds become more, it then accelerates a lot of that circulation of funds then makes people to be able to access even more credit to in the populace. So in one way or another, that small money of 500 or 1,000 shillings as it has helped in circulation of funds, even if you cannot be able to use it to do anything. And the businesses are going to boom because people can be able to have pay. Remember right now, and for the past few days, people have been operating on defense. What I say, you know, you do not want, you fear expending, you fear spending, because you are being in a position where you are in a safety net. You have to fear or you have to ensure that you are in a position where you can sustain yourself in case of any emergency, and it's not a good place for any people to be at any given time. So these kind of things, if they continue accelerating more transfers of funds into the economy, then it will make people to have economic power and even buying power and the capacity of people to even begin to spend and invest.
And I believe this is the first kind of loan that someone is being given and you have to save. This is something that has not happened in the country in any platforms, private or even the public sector, which more or less inculcates a saving culture that we do not have in the country. A lot of people are not saving. Would that be a boost? And then as hustlers do their work, they know very well they have some extra coins somewhere.
I think people save. People do save. And when you look at what COVID did to people, most people have learned to be in safety net. It's just that the magnitude of the saving differs because of the times. You find that there is this difficulty in terms of what you need to purchase for your household and things like that. But people still, I believe that Kenyans still believe in saving. So what the government has done by putting a saving arm or a saving angle of the Hustler Fund is just to embed and reinforce the significance of the government to encourage people to save more and more.
Yes, and some people have raised queries and talking about the money that is given to the elderly.
Yeah.
They say haifiki, sometimes imechelewa, but the Hustler Fund is quite a well-oiled machine.
Exactly. Which
more or less people argue. Some people are arguing that it could be because of something that is coming through the political channel. And being one of the campaign promises, they would want it to be quite not only elaborate, but well-oiled. But unfortunately, other funds, we've ever had other funds, Wezo, the Vijana, we've had a lot of funds, but we didn't see the government quite hands-on as we've seen on the Hustler Fund, despite the fact that the Hustler Fund has quite few limitations for anyone who wants that money.
You know, the reason is because, one, it was a huge political debt. Remember, when you look at the face of the Kenya Kwanza, all you see is it was a hustler. It was a hustler government formed by the hustler movement. And it's sort of like the face of this government. And so they really had to find a way of implementing it as fast as possible. And I think that maybe as time goes by, the regime also wants political credit the shortest time possible so that it can be able to entrench its legitimacy amongst the people that, you know what, we promised this, we are delivering. And then people then believe and trust your regime. And on the sustainability, that is now where the government now has to find ways of institutionalizing this fund. Because you see, some of the other funds that you have mentioned, like Uwezo Fund, the elderly, the cash transfers of the elderly, that institutionalization sorrow is one of the things that has made it to be, those delays and things like that, because government bureaucracy. So we also expect maybe as time goes by, we also expect that maybe as time goes by, as Hustler Fund is being institutionalized and they are learning from mistakes, remember they have just started it, maybe there are things that they are going to learn that need to be perfected. So as they perfect it and as they institutionalize it, as they establish processes, a lot of things are going to change. And maybe with time, even those other delays because of bureaucracy will arise as well.
All right. And we're still going to be touching a little bit more on the Hustler funds. Remember, the Kenya Kwanza are having their parliamentary group meeting right here in the capital. And we would want to know exactly what their plans. And remember, we are almost 100 days since Kenya Kwanza took over government as the fifth regime. But for now, we cross over to the coastal city of Mombasa. A lot of activities during the festive season, and we are in December. But now we have Junei Karisa on the line. She is keeping a keen eye on the annual KBC meeting right in Mombasa. Junei, kindly bring us up to speed. Good morning.
Good morning, Ben Troy. We are at the Sheikh Zayed Primary School here in Mombasa, where 10,000 education stakeholders revolving around the Kenya primary school head teachers, the annual KBC conference, are converged here to see and deliberate if they can come up with policies that will govern the transition to the junior secondary school. This is a conference that began yesterday on Sunday. We were here doing the preps together with the officials yesterday. It was the governor's days where Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasir was here to emphasize on the role that the county governments can play in supporting the primary school heads. Right about now, we are expecting the Cabinet Secretary of Education to make his way in this venue. The Principal Secretary is already here, Belio Kipsang. We are waiting for the arrival of the Cabinet Secretary. His Excellency, the President William Ruto was expected to grace this occasion. We are uncertain whether he will make it for the occasion. However, we understand the Cabinet Secretary is on his way and the arrival of the Principal Secretary has already been graced. So during these deliberations, the 4-day conference, the school heads, they have received very well the reforms that the Presidential Workforce on Education reforms have tabled to have the junior secondary schools be domiciled in some of the primary school heads. Now, yesterday, according to the KICD director, Professor Charles, he emphasized the need of the teacher-learners relationship to continue blossoming right at the primary school level, and this will ensure that these learners who are transitioning to their adolescent stage, they are able to get adequate learning facilities and emotional support from their teachers. Whereas if you would have taken them to other schools, for example, in secondary schools, then it will have been a contentious issues. However, let me not preempt anything. Let me just bring in some of the school heads to give us some of their expectations on how they have received these reforms and their expectation to the government as these reforms start being enacted in the various primary school. Karibu sana. This is Mr. Patrick to give us an overview how he has received the reforms on the education tabled by the Presidential Workforce to have junior secondary schools domiciled in primary schools. What are their immediate demands? Karibu sana Bwana Patrick, tueleze tu what is your immediate demands as you ready yourself, of course, to host the junior secondary schools.
Thank you very much.
Start with your name and your primary school.
Thank you. I'm Tuitaek Patrick, a teacher block primary school in Baringo County. I want to take this opportunity to say we welcome the decision that junior secondary school is domiciled in primary schools, and we really appreciate. We now expect the government to support us because we have a lot of challenges in the ground, especially the facilities that are required. We want to ask the government to assist us because the learners are very important, and we need to make sure that they get what is supposed to be given to them.
What are the immediate infrastructural or demands, or the teaching aids demands, that you're expecting the government to also take an upper hand when it comes to the costing footing?
Okay, thank you. Okay, we expect the highest thing that we need is the resources, the laboratories and the resource persons, that is the staff who are supposed to assist these learners. And also we need other resources like the classrooms, because the enrollment in our schools is growing high, and therefore we expected that the extra classroom that is going to remain will be occupied by the rest of the learners, because we thought others are going to junior secondary schools. But because the government has decided that we host them, we need support from them. The textbooks and the rooms and maybe the teaching aids.
Thank you so much. Mr. Daniel, just to tell us, are you ready to host these transited learners to the junior secondary school? Anza na majina, and which primary school that you're coming from?
Okay, I am Daniel Bitok from Lebelen Primary School in Nandi County. I'm very much pleased that the government has given us the opportunity to host that level of secondary school in our primary level. But my humblest request is that we should have enough teachers to handle the learners. And also we have shortage of classrooms in some of our schools. And we are expecting the government to do something in order to facilitate smooth transition of the secondary school in our primary schools.
The national chair hinted that 30,000 teachers will be rolled out or will be given to support this transition. How do you see that? And I am sure these are principals as well as teachers for the junior secondary school.
Okay, I'm happy that the government is considering posting of teachers, more teachers to our schools, and I know that is a beginning. Let the procedure of employing more teachers continue so that KBC can continue in a very smooth manner in our schools. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Let me get another head teacher. What is your name, madam? Are you ready to host these junior secondary schools, being a pioneer in this new curriculum?
Thank you very much. My name is Jane Kura from Juja. As a head teacher, we are ready to host the children, although we feel that there are some gaps, especially with the infrastructure. Some classes, they are not up to the standard, so we like the ministry to come in and assist by improving the rooms. We also have a shortage of furniture, so we would very much like that the government provides extra furniture and of course money for doing some of the activities that are involved in the junior secondary.
What kind of deadline would you feel is okay for you school heads to work with from the government?
Now that it's coming in January, we would like maybe by mid-January they provide some of this, they increase the capitation, they provide some of the furniture. Then by January we will be ready to take off.
There were some concerns from parents also that this curriculum is expensive because most parents will have to go to their pockets to assist with the teaching aids. As school heads, how do you see this equation?
It's true, it's expensive, but we feel that now that it is a system and the government had planned for it, it's not a one-day event, then the government should be ready to come in and substitute some of the materials. Instead of asking the parents to buy, they provide. If we have a practical in home science or any other subject, if they are the farm tools, let them provide the seeds. they provide, but because with teachers we have no problem with the implementation.
Thank you so much, Madam Jane. Let me get a parent. The same question I've just asked Madam Jane. This curriculum, and parents are complaining that this system is expensive because most parents are digging into their pockets to support the practicals in CBC. Do you feel the same? Ama wewe shida zako za CBC ziko wapi ama uko sawa? Tuangalie mbele. Anza na majina.
Thank you. Kwa majina naitwa Rogers Mbula Munyalo. I'm the chairman Mama Ngina Primary School in Nakuru, a school which of course has a population of over 2,400 pupils. And of course about CBC is precisely quite expensive to parents. It has been a business of just a do or die trick to parents. I wish if it were to be revisited, I would have also opted to think like issue ya ile vitu wanashinda wakituma wazazi kwa cyber. Nikiwa mzazi mimi, I would have wished it should not be. Instead, the government should provide zile vitu ambazo wanaitisha watoto wetu ziwe zinafacilitatiwa na serikali kwa mashule. Maana yake ni gharama kubwa sana.
Hapo awali tulikuwa tumeona kwamba mfumo huu pale wanafunzi wanapomaliza kufanya mitihani yao watakuwa wanaenda katika shule za sekondari. Wazazi wengi walikuwa wamelalamika wakisema watoto bado wangali wadogo na wanapelekwa katika shule ambazo ziko mbali na wazazi wao, na walikuwa na wasiwasi. Hivi sasa wamerudishwa kwenye zile shule ambazo wamemalizia mtihani wao. Nyinyi kama wazazi umelipokeleaje swala hili, na je unaona kwamba hawa walimu wakuu wako tayari kuona kwamba masomo ya junior secondary school yanaweza kufanyika katika shule hizi?
Hakika kweli kabisa, hapa pasipo kubishana na pasipo kuficha ukweli, ni kwamba hawa wanafunzi walipotajiwa wanaenda shule za secondary ama shule za upili wajapo kufanya mtihani huu, kweli kabisa ni jambo ambalo limekwisha ingia kwa mawazo yao. Lakini uhakika ni kwamba there is a lot of miscommunication, because one thing, take it from me, these children are so young. Out of my own observation, I have a report which I can communicate very clearly with a lot of confidence. Wazazi walio katika eneo ambayo mimi ninatoka, Nakuru, na hasa shule ambayo mimi niko, wazazi wetu hawakuchagua mashule ambayo yako nje bali na mahali wanakoishi. Hivi ni kumaanisha wazazi mwanzo hawakuwa wameridhika kwamba watoto wao wanaweza kuwa mbali nao. Pili, watoto wenyewe wamekwisha kuambiwa na wazazi wao hawafai kuwa mbali na wao, ndiposa walichagua mashule yaliyo maeneo. Ni kumaanisha nini? Hawa wanafunzi wetu ambao wanatarajiwa kuingia katika shule za upili zikiitwa junior secondary as they were expected to be, walichagua mashule yaliyo katika ukaribu wa kwao, kiwango cha wanaweza kusafiri na kurejea.
Kwa hivyo mmeridhishwa na uamuzi wa rais kupeleka watoto hao katika shule ambazo walizotoka?
Tunaikubali na tunaiunga mkono. Mwanzo watoto hawa ni wachanga sana kuwaondoa kwa mikono ya wazazi wao.
Ujumbe wako pengine kwa serikali wanapojitayarisha kuwaleta hawa watoto katika shule za junior secondary?
Mimi mwanzo nikiwa mwenyekiti wa shule ambayo ina idadi kubwa jinsi hii, ninaona shida iliyo mbele yetu hapa. Mwanzo hawa wamekwisha kuitwa wanafunzi wa junior secondary. The government should fund and should give us prayer before these people came on board come January. Serikali yetu iweze kutupa pesa za kufadhili na hasa kuweza kuran shule zetu kwa wepesi sana. Manake mwanzo inaitwa junior secondary. It must be very expensive. It must be incurring as kind of extra expenses. I wish the government should take it to its own. Watupe pesa mwanzo kabla watoto hao hawajafika. Come January, as they come on board our schools in the name of junior secondary, we want to be well equipped with money. Si zile pesa ambazo tumekuwa tukipewa za Quran primary FPE ni kidogo sana. The votes do not stand that cost. Now, owing to the fact that now these pupils believe themselves to be junior secondary, it comes to our minds that it shall be an expensive thing. Secondly, Secondly, I wish just to pull out of this, I wish it were possible if they posted us teachers for the same before the pupils came on board. And also we were ahead of our time to incorporate and understand the thing we are calling CBC. Thank you very much.
Allow me just to finalize. Are you ready to roll out the books? Just introduce yourself. Are you allowed to give out the books that are there?
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Geoffrey Lijodi. I'm the National Sales and Marketing Manager, Moran Publishers East Africa Limited. And we are ready to roll out the books because government has vetted books for grade 7. And when we submitted, we got 7 approvals. And out of these 7 approvals, our skills in English and our life skill books were procured by government, so we are just awaiting for the LPO to supply to the schools.
But are you ready? Are we ready to have these course books for the junior secondary?
The books are ready. Once we get the nod from government to print and supply, we shall be ready to do that.
Okay. So Ben Troy, that was just quite an extensive panel that I had, but all of them, they have welcomed these reforms, and they're looking forward to see if the government will add in more teachers, more monies for the infrastructures to be set up to ensure that there is a seamless transition, 100% transition from to junior secondary school. So we are still here. We have seen the arrival of the CS. The PS is already here. He was here earlier on. So we are expecting that in a matter of 30 minutes or so, the event to start and the teachers to hear what the government has to say concerning junior secondary school. So I hand it back to you, Ben Troy Njue. I'm Juni Garissa from Mombasa County.
Live from Mombasa, the annual KEPSHA conference, and this one is quite special because a lot in the reforms, when we talk about education, reforms in the education, the president actually did set up a commission or a forum to actually try and look into the new education system that we have in the country. And what has come out of it is that it has to be cost effective, not cheap, cost effective for the parents, and also the issue of domiciling the junior secondary in primary school has also come out. The good thing is that Junior has been able to talk to parents as well as teachers, as well as the service providers. And let me now bring in Dr. Churchill Saoke, who is also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. You are a scholar. The reforms in the education sector and the issues that have been brought about by different stakeholders, including the parents, the domiciling of the junior secondary, because I wouldn't want my daughter actually to be in a secondary school at this moment that is quite far from where our home is. Yeah. Issues of the cost have also come up. But the good thing is that the president did task the education ministry with actualizing the transition.
Yes, it was important that when I look at some of the recommendations that were made, I think they were based on the reality on the ground, on what really can be implemented. Because, you know, for example, as you very well have said, there were issues of infrastructure about, you know, the transition from, you know, the transition to secondary and to junior secondary, and having domiciled some of those secondaries into the existing secondaries, which would have necessitated the need to build more classrooms, and that would have been a tall over for government. So I think the recommendation of having the junior secondary being within the primary schools is a decision that is actually based on reality, based on what is possible, and it will make then the transition into the CBC curriculum much more easier and much more leaner, as would have been the chaos if you would have had to go and at a grade 6 you're going to do selection of a school and have your children go very far away from home, and most parents were not very comfortable with that. So I think those recommendations are very realistic. It was very realistic, specifically that, and you know, the ministry now, the key thing now, and as one of the head teachers have said, is now the need to now bridge the infrastructure gap within the current primary schools, because you see, they might need to build more laboratories. So that they don't share with the neighboring secondary school as has been recommended.
And it's a good thing you've observed that, because they're talking about even if we have the classes,
yes,
maybe things like laboratories will cost like 4 or 5 times the cost of just the 4 walls.
Exactly.
And those are some of the things that have been mooted.
Exactly.
Okay, hold the thought, because we now need to cross over to the Windsor Hotel, where from yesterday the Kenya Kwanza parliamentary all the members of parliament from the Kenya Kwanza divide are having a PGM, a parliamentary group meeting, since yesterday, and the head of state did grace that occasion yesterday, and it's something that we're also going to be touching on. And he reminded the Kenya Kwanza MPs not to be swallowed or be swayed by the Azimio divide. And right now we have our very own JJ Kioria, who is on standby with one of the members of parliament from the Mount Kenya East region. JJ, good morning. How is Windsor and how is everything there?
Thank you, Ben Troy Njue, back at Broadcasting House. It is the second day of a Kenya Kwanza conference on the legislative agenda. Yesterday, we saw President Dr. William Samoei Ruto and the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua address the members of parliament drawn from Kenya Kwanza. And for the first time, the budget obviously sponsoring this meeting is from the National Assembly, not sponsored by the political party or coalition. And this is the second day and the last of their engagements today. And we'll continue to engage, members of parliament throughout the course of a day to understand the talks they've been having and centered on what. Yesterday there were issues of the CBC, the implementation of CBC and the new directives, as well as using the CDF to implement some of the directives from the CBC, as well as on the implementation of a Hustlers Fund. And right about now I'm joined by the member of parliament for Tigania East, ni mbunge wa Tigania East katika jimbo la Meru, kiongozi wa chama cha No Peu. Mara ya mwisho ulikuwa Azimio. Kenya Kwanza unafanya nini?
Kwanza nasema asante kwa Watigania kwa kunipigia kura mingi. Kwa sababu walinipigia kura 33,240. Number 2 wa Hunda alikuwa na 10,000 ambaye ni alikuwa MP. Na maana yangu ya kuwa nimekuja Kenya Kwanza si kusema kwamba Ruto alikuwa hena mewangu. Ruto alikuwa rafiki yangu. Na tumeanza naye mwaka 2002 kitambo sana, wakati wa KANU mpaka wakati huu. So wakati tulipigana ile vita Tigania East, na Watigania wakanipigia kura na wakapigia Ruto, wakanyima ile mti yake. So ni kumaanisha kwamba katika Tigania East Ruto anapendwa na Mporo Abure anapendwa. So nikaona the best thing, kwa sababu sasa kuna watu yake kwa ground na mimi niko na watu kwa ground, na watu yangu ambao wako kwa ground wanataka ku benefit, ndio nikajiunga na Kenya Kwanza, na tukaongea na William tufanye kazi pamoja, kwa sababu haya yangu ni kufanyia Mtigania kazi. Na ni hakika eti ya kwamba Mtigania akiinuka kila mtu ameinuka, kwa sababu haikuwa mimi haya yangu mimi mwenyewe nijifaindishe, kwa sababu kujifaindisha hiyo ni kulaani familia yangu ilikuwa tu ni muinue Mtigania, kwa sababu Mtigania nilikumbuka kazi niliyomfanyia mwaka 2013 mpaka 2017, ndio ilifanya yeye anichague bila kutumia pesa yoyote. Nileta posters peke yake na machini za kuongea, nikapiga ndebe ya mdomo peke yake, na chama nikaleta chama ambaye haijulikani katika nchi yetu ya Kenya, No Peu, National Ordinary People Empowerment Union, chama kipekee iliyo na MCS 10 na MP Mpuru Mtavuri, na wasaizi nimeweka mtu Bungoma ambaye ni senator hiyo kwa hiyo chama, na kuna wengine simameza kule upande wa Ngariza. Nina uhakika ile kiti ya Bungoma ambaye tumeweka Wanyonyi, na hakika hiyo tunaenda kusinda Watangula.
Alright. Tuzungumzie masala ya Kenya Kwanza ambayo mlizungumzia jana, na tena kwenye agenda ya leo mnazungumzia mambo yapi kama wabunge ambao wanamuunga mkono Rais William Ruto?
Kama wabunge, kwanza tunaangalia mambo projects zile ambazo zilianzishwa na Jubilee. Kuna projects mingi sana za mandamsi zilianzishwa na Jubilee, kuna za barabara, kuna technical training institute zile TTI ambaye zilianzishwa kule kwa Mazinani, lakini zingine ni zilifunguliwa, hakuna kitu yote ilifanyika. Ndipo tuliongea na rais hapa nje tukamweleza kwamba kabla ya kuanzisha project nyingine mpya, zile ambayo mlifungua na Uhuru Kenyatta ambaye zile siko na karibu miaka 10 kwa ground hazijafika kitu yoyote, tunaomba kwanza hiyo ifanyike kwanza, iise kwanza, and then tuanze nyingine ya fresh. Na tukasikizana
ya kwamba tufanye pamoja, ya kwamba katika ile mbunge tusikizane pamoja na tusiwe na ukabila, eti ya kwamba kuna grupu, naona grupu ya Kalenjin inakaa pale inaongea Kalenjin, grupu ya Meru na Kikuyu na Meru na Kikuyu na Kiembu wanaongea the same language. Hapana, hii Kenya iwe ni Kenya ya kila Mkenya. Na ndivyo mimi ni mwenyewe nikiwa Mpuru Mtaburi nikaamua kujiunga na hii group, kwa sababu Kimeru nasema kwamba atakaoa mama yako ndio baba yako. Ya kwamba mama yangu Mkenya aliolewa na William Ruto, na kama leo na William Ruto, Raila Amolo Odinga nilikuwa namsupport, nikampigia kura, lakini hakuweza. Na rais ni mmoja katika nchi yetu ya Kenya ambaye ni William Ruto. So unless mimi niame nile Uganda ama Tanzania ama nile Somali, nisiwe katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Kama niko Kenya, niko chini ya William Ruto kwa kipindi ya miaka 5.
Alright. Yeah. Very quickly tunapomalizia ni kwamba unamtaja Raila Odinga ambaye ulimpigia kura na amekuwa mwenzako kisiasa kwa wakati mrefu. Kidogo tuzungumzie maandamano ambayo ameyaitisha siku ya kesho. Anasema kwamba si maandamano bali ni majadiliano kati ya Wakenya kuhusu rekodi ya Rais William Ruto. Sijui maoni yako.
Maoni yangu kwa maandamano ya kesho ambaye mimi siungi mkono, kwa sababu mimi nikitaka watu Tigani waandamane pale Tigani ya East, kwanza vijana wangu na watoto wangu ningewaambia muendeni Tigani ya East mwanza kuandamana, sio kuambia watu Tigani ya East waandamane. Hapana, ndivyo namwambia Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga, hii serikali ni mpya, hii serikali ni ya njana, tuwapatie nafasi kidogo uone kama hata ndeliva ndio waanze maandamano. Lakini mapema, hata uwezi za mtoto siku ya kwanza alabu waseme ameanza kutembea, ameanza kula chakula. Hapana, anasukuma polepole kula chakula, anza kutembea. Hii ni mpya, na Kenyans tumechoka na siasa ya maandamano. Kenyans tunataka amani katika nchi yetu ya Kenya, tuweze kukaa kada zile zingine bila nakaa. Kwa hivyo mama, maandamano ya kesho nikiwa kiongozi wa Meru ama party leader ama rais wa chama ya Nopeu, si support hiyo maandamano ya kesho.
Asante. The leader of the PEU party speaking to us this morning. Bentroy, I'll hand it over back to you. Obviously we're here for the entire day, as indeed the members of parliament conclude their talks today on the legislative agenda, and we'll be monitoring what they will be saying, where they will be saying it, and of course who will be making it here, particularly when you focus on the upper ladder of executive who will be making it here to close this function. Back to you, Bentroy.
Live from the Windsor Hotel, where the Kenya Kwanza MPs are currently meeting there with Tigania East Mpuri Apuri, who has said, indeed, we do not support the maandamano that have been planned by the Azimio divide. And perhaps we can touch on that as we wind up in regards to what the Azimio leader, Raila Odinga, has talked about. The maandamanos, for lack of a better word, that are consultative meetings with Kenyans. But we do know very well in Kenya what exactly happens when we have maandamanos.
Well, he is a politician, and he maybe wants to send a message to the government so that it could be heard. And the unfortunate thing is that some of those political rallies, they are likely to wipe emotions of people and act in a manner that is not expected. So, it's important to act with restraint. I think maybe it is too early for him to come out and begin to talk about government in castigating government in that manner. It will be my advice that he allows his absence to be felt in the country, if he really believes that he was useful to the country. Because I think sometimes in leadership and in kingdomship, absence is very significant. It makes people to see value in you. And also in politics, that exit is significant. So the more he engages in this kind of public sport, it makes people begin seeing that this is the same script that you have been doing, and it does not reflect on his stature.
And the current situation, economic situation in the country and around the world is quite dire. But before I give you a final word, Abednego Munyi, you say campaign monies are just that is in regards to the Hustler Fund. Zeki, you say you're in. John Jora, he pesa ya kukula mandazi too. That is why I was saying that we have varied reactions on what Kenyans are perceiving the Hustler Fund. We have Paul Noah, you say you are on. Then Alfred Shua has talked about kuna mikora Ikona Apia Hustler Fund inadanganya we send 183 to get over 50K. I believe this is the right moment for the government to ensure that they have good public should know exactly what to do. Just dial *254# and then follow the prompt. No apps, no sending any money. All right. To my opinion, we as youth, limit is small for startups simply because there are business that we require over 2,000 for it to start up. Let them improve the limit. The limit has been mentioned a couple of days. Gone are those days you can start a business with even 100 bob. But as the situation now in the country and in the whole world, the amount of money the Hustler Fund is offering is too small to start up or run already started business. My view is that they should have given us a 5,000 shillings limit so that they can see how Kenyans can do wonders with that money. Amina Ali also say the limit is too small. At least they should have started the limit of about 2,000, which is fair enough to start a business. Just sampling some of the responses that you have sent on our social media platform. Doc, your last word as we round up.
Yes, I think, I mean, those are comments that I'm sure will inform how the government moves on with the fund moving forward. And I would just like to maybe emphasize the need for the government and the regime to begin seeing that they have the mandate to lead the people of Kenya and, you know, take that sole mandate, especially to unite the country. I think that is very important. And that will then require that there's a lot of toning of language which is very significant for them to view that, you know what, we are now leading the whole country and those who lost are those who won. And so there are certain sentiments that statesmanship requires that you don't proclaim in public because it wounds specific people and you know, and massages other people's emotions. So I think that is what I would really want to emphasize and advise the political leadership. And it's not just the government, even the opposition as well. Because every action that we do today will deepen the divide more and we will not be having a country. I mean, Kenyans want to go back to develop the country and work together and not see each other that you're coming from this place, you're coming from this place, you voted this person, you voted this person. We want to take this country forward.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Churchill Saoke, who is a leadership and governance expert and also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. It's always a pleasure to have you, Doc. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
making
much.
time
Thank you
and
so
for
much,
your
Ben.
perspective
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Indeed, that's where we wrap the first hour of News Check. But on the second hour, our kids are at home enjoying the holidays, 2 months holidays, some 2 months. But that is quite a long time, if you ask me, for so many things to happen, both good and bad. That is exactly what we'll be looking at in this second hour. We just have some few commercial break, and then we will be getting back to that conversation with a counseling psychologist for comments, suggestions. Where you are watching us, we are live, even on our social media platform. We'll be back in a minute.
Jambo.
Si jambo.
Naona umevuna viazi vingi.
Sababu ni harusi ya rafiki yangu. Wacha tu nikupe viazi bure.
Asante mama. Na nikuulize, umetumia nini kukuza viazi vingi namna hii?
Natumia Elgon Dhabiti Super Fertilizer.
Siri ni hii, kwa mazao kemkem mimi hupanda na Elgon Dhabiti Super NPK Potato Planting na kupandilia na Dhabiti Super NPK Potato Top Dressing, na bas, matokeo ni mazao ya ajabu.
Na umrudishie Mama Roda pesa zake.
Sawa.
Aya, sawa.
Make transactions anywhere in the world with the NCBA Visa card and stand a chance to win big. Join the FIFA World Cup 2022 when you win an all-expenses-paid trip for you and your +1 to watch 2 games. Or Win exciting weekly prizes that will make your FIFA viewing experience super duper. All it takes is a swipe or a tap to pay 2,000 Kenya shillings or more with your NCBA Visa debit or credit card. The more you swipe or tap to pay, the higher your chances of winning with 1 point for every 2,000 Kenya shillings spent. Don't miss out. NCBA. Go for it.
To get the pit as your skis are tuned, dial star 811 star 397 hash.
You may be in the pit. You do not see how you could get out. But the good news is that you do not have to get by yourself. The Most High God is about to lift you out. He's about to turn the medical report. He's about to free you. He's about to open new doors, bringing new opportunities, new relationships. The pit is not your destination. Get ready to rise.
To get the pit, dial star 811 star 397 hash. Star 811 star 397.
Airtel, the most affordable network.
Welcome back to KBC News Check, and just in case you joined us, my name is Bentro Njue, and on the sign language interpretation now we have Byron Abuli, and on this second hour we are looking at parenting, and especially now that we have our kids for the long holidays. Well, as I said earlier, is that the long holidays could come with a lot, both good and bad. What are the telltale signs to look out for, even those who are enjoying their holidays? What are also some of the things that we need to be on the watch out? But we will be looking at that a little bit later. But first of all, let's now cross over to the Tulip Hotel in Westlands here in Nairobi, where the East Africa Business Council is, together with a host of other partners, have a workshop to validate a framework for private sector self-regulation of the safety and quality of coffee and fresh fruits and vegetables. Our business reporter Frederick Mwoki has been keeping a keen eye on that function, and we are now joining Mwoki live. Good morning, Mwoki. Tell us something about that invite.
Ben Troy, we're coming to you live from a Nairobi hotel in Westlands, and this is a workshop by the East African Business Council in collaboration with the GIZ East African Community, and it's a workshop to validate a framework for private sector self-regulation of safety and quality of coffee and fresh fruits and vegetables. It is a 3-day workshop. It began yesterday, and of course is set to culminate tomorrow, where the stakeholders will adopt the recommendations from the workshop. And to shed more light on this framework, I'm going to be having a word with some of the key stakeholders in this workshop. And I welcome to this live broadcast. This is KBC, the great KBC. Kindly just introduce yourself and just tell us more about this framework that you are coming up with.
Okay, thank you very much. Martin Kimanya, work for GIZ at the East African Community, and what we do is collaborating with East African Community in harmonization of standards, particularly in the sector of food And in the course of doing that, we actually realized the private sector participation in standards harmonization is very low. And ultimately, we found that our small scale and medium enterprises are actually unable to comply with the EAC harmonized standards. And then we tried to look for the reasons for this, and we did find that they do not have very well organized coordinated systems for the control of food safety and food quality, and which are important parameters in compliance when you want to trade. And therefore we decided to collaborate with the East African Business Council in trying to collect private sector problem. It used the looking at international best practices in terms of trying to make sure that the private sector itself takes the leadership in terms of improving safety and quality of food, the intra-EAC trade, as well as for the export to EU and the other countries, because that's what the project which is supporting this is doing. And then we, after having collected the views, we realized that we need to develop a framework or a scheme and be harmonized at the level and be adopted by the all private sector associations of the and which participation in harmonization of EAC standards for food, and which can also in implementation and ultimately improve the safety of our but also the safety and quality of exports.
The main led up with such a framework, and why at this all time now? Why?
Yes, we know that this food, they take some kind of measures in order to comply with standards. And these standards, as I said, they relate to making sure that the food is safe and quality. These measures aren't adequately coordinated. So dealing with individual farmers or individual exporters in terms of making them comply, the government can be in partnership with the private sector associations. Here I'm talking about institutions like FPIC, I'm talking about institutions like Coffee Association, or Coffee Associations, partnering with them and make sure that we coordinate members, actually take measures, deliberate measures, and take leadership in implementation of the standards. Once the traders take the leadership, there is more in terms of making sure that there is compliance with these standards. And therefore, we want them to have organized structures, have technical people, technical committees, leaderships that are responsible for standards, responsible for quality compliance, or the safety compliance, which will help them, meet the internal formal standards for food, but also meet the international requirements for export of food.
Maybe what role do you think the government can play or chip in making sure that you are all targets what you want to have it addressed, it's implemented?
Actually, this is an important element. This is an important thing to government, because by having the private sector people coordinated and organized, it will actually minimize the government control or regulation of the same. And therefore the government role is actually, developing policies and guidelines which will help the government recognize schemes that will be developed by the private sector themselves. And once they recognize those schemes, it will actually minimize the number of inspections the government is doing in terms of making sure there is compliance in food safety or quality requirements. So the role of the government is trying to develop mechanisms to recognize those private sector mechanisms that we are trying to adopt through this workshop. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, that has been one of the key stakeholders. This is a workshop that has been organized by the East African Business Council in collaboration with the GIZ East African Community Region. And of course, it's a workshop that is geared towards coming up with, validate a framework for the private sector self-regulation of safety and quality of coffee and fresh fruits. And of course, it's set to culminate tomorrow, where Orders are scheduled. They are set to adopt the recommendations that will be coming from these workshop. And we'll just keep you.
Thank you so much, Frederick Mwoki there. And first of all, we apologize for the weak signal that we have there with Mwoki, but we have got the gist of the matter. Is the East Africa Business Council, and the good thing is that we have a new kid in the block, and that happens to be the DRC. Over 90 million people into the East Africa community, and when you talk about coffee, Kenya is one of the leading, not only in the region but also in the world. More, because of the interest of time, we will be giving us a more detailed report in our subsequent bulletin. Allow me now to move to the next topic of discussion, where we are looking at parenting during the festive season and the long holiday. It's December, and we're quite sure kids are elated that they are enjoying their holidays. But this is the time that even bad things happen as well, despite the fact that there are festivities, and because of a lot of time and parents and guardians not being vigilant about what their kids are doing. It's not the first time or the second we have seen even teenagers being arrested for crime during the holidays. These are some of the things that we need to look out for, and even their mental wellness. We need to keep tabs to ensure that our kids are safe and sound from all negative thoughts, and also from negative activities that culminate during the festive season. Allow me now to introduce my guest. She is a counseling psychologist, and she is well framed to give us an in-depth or a conclusive report in regards to how we are supposed to look out for our kids, our brothers, our friends during the festive season. Jackie Njeri Gadu.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
First things first, because of interest of time, what as a parent should I be looking out for? The kids are here for 2 months.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long holiday, right?
Yes.
And I've had parents say that, it's chaotic. I mean, they need to delegate time to check that, they've done their homework, they've eaten, they've taken care of themselves, they've not found themselves in the wrong company. So it's a lot. But here's the thing. For anything to work, you must put in work, you must put in effort. If I'm trying to lose weight today, I'll not just sit in front of the TV and wallow in self-pity. I'll watch what I eat, I'll go to the gym. Sindio, if I want to get a promotion at work, I'll really put my best foot forward, submit my reports on time, make sure I'm at work on time so that I can be recognized and be given a promotion. Same goes to parenting. You want to have a relationship with your child, you need to put in work. You need to delegate time to understand what this child is about, what they like, what they don't like, understand their thought process, understand their patterns. What time does your child wake up? What time does your child go to sleep? Are they having any difficulties at school? Are they having difficulties fitting into their friends? Just create time to know your child. Yes.
And looking at what kids do, a lot of parents are not in the know, and especially when it comes to phones, tablets, TV, computers. And right now, I'm here working. My kid is at home. How do I help out so that whatever she watches, whatever she does, I'm on the know?
I mean, this is a major concern because, again, we cannot tell them not to watch TV. We cannot take the phones and the laptops away from them because we are raising global citizens and we want them to be tech savvy. However, a child who's operating a phone is a child who's mature enough, is a child who understands rules and regulations and understands limits. As a parent, are you taking time to set these limits with your child? Of course, I'm all about collaboration. I don't like this thing of I'm the parent, mi ndio nasema, I'm the one who calls the shots. We need to be able to negotiate with our children. So if they are watching, we have apps that you can use to regulate what your child is watching. You have apps that even dictate the kind of time, the amount of time that your child spends on these gadgets. Even on TVs nowadays, we have these locks that if the TV is watched for more than an hour, it automatically switches off. So as a parent, are you taking these measures, or we are just practicing lazy parenting where let them watch, let them scroll around? I mean, it's okay, but are you taking time to understand what kind of information they're accessing on these gadgets? Yes, it's your role. Yes.
And as a parent, I'm quite sure a lot of time, even if you decide to for lack of a better word, police your child, when he or she is out there playing or with the peers, anything can happen.
That's true.
This is something that also parents need to watch out for.
Yeah.
The friends that your kids are socializing with. Because at least when the kid is at home and you can keep tabs with what the kid is doing. But when the kid goes out, a lot can happen.
That's true.
And you cannot regulate that to the point.
Sadly, sadly so. However, you know, when you collaborate with your child, when you have a relationship with your child, it means that you guys talk. You know, you're able to tell them the do's and don'ts. You're able to tell them the risks that they could expose themselves if they mingle with certain kinds of people, or if they come home late, or if they do this and that. If you don't take time to talk to your child, the kind of information they will get from their friends, from the TV, from the internet, is just unimaginable. So are we talking to our children? You know, because yeah, ideally it would be we stay at home and monitor these children, ideally, but we are not living in the ideal world, we're in the real world. But if you talk to your child, I kid you not, because you have forged a relationship, they will think twice before they mess up. And even if they do, you guys will be able to talk about it and rectify. But if you don't have a relationship, if they don't know what it is that you expect from them, if they don't know that they need to look out for themselves also, what are we doing? Yeah.
And everybody, including our kids, have the right to privacy.
Yes.
But sometimes parents, as parents, you want to know exactly mtoto wangu anafanya nini. Ebu leta hiyo simu. Because the parents who have already bought their kids a phone,
yes,
they want to scout exactly what the kid is doing when the kid is in her or in his room. The parent wants to dash in and more or less look like a cop and just look at the room exactly to establish what is there. The kids have the right to privacy. Where do we balance the privacy and the parenting?
Well, I mean, yes, we want to give them freedom, but it has to have limitations. I will not advise parents to just let their kids be, all right? Just because they have a phone or they have their own room, they should lock themselves and watch whatever they want, or just invite as many people as they want. But as long as they understand that you're the parent, and at some point you'll have to check whatever it is they have been scrolling on their phones, that you want to understand what kind of things they're watching on YouTube, TikTok and Netflix and all that, that you'll want to understand the kind of friends they're inviting in the room, that from time to time you will police the room to check. Because you're the parent and you're looking out for the best interest. What we do, we go there with a lot of force, with a lot of command, which of course nobody will appreciate. So you prepare them, you're like, you know, once every 2 weeks I'll be coming to check your room. So I'll be going through your stuff. So if there's something, of course they also want to clean up their mess, you know, but tell them, don't just ambush. Nobody likes being ambushed, by the way. So if you look at your child and try to treat them the same way you'd like to be treated, then you'll have some compassion and understanding. Yeah.
And because we are in December, you hear them saying that wakati wa sherehe, you see, this is when most youths indulge in one or two vices, including alcohol, narcotics as well, drugs. This is the time that they do that. And yes, we have, it's sherehe time, but the limits that we have to put for our kids and not seem like we want to control whatever they are doing. How, as a parent, would you advise that kind of parent?
So on this sherehe bit, I'm imagining we are talking about kids who are 18 and above. So these are kids who are in campus and college, correct?
Yes.
You know, the thing is, we want to impose certain rules when they are older. We don't talk about these things when they're younger. We wait until they're 18, then you're like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. How about you start grooming them when they're younger so they understand at some point when they get into the outside world, there's exposure to this. There's exposure to sex, there's exposure to alcohol, there's exposure to weed and coke and all these things that people use. Why do we wait until the last minute? And then we have very short conversations. It's like 5 minutes. Ukienda utapata mimba. Aya. After that, usikunywe pombe, usirandarande. Why can't we start telling them? Of course, when they get to teenagehood, these children know a lot. Let us not underestimate these humans. They know a lot. So we should start grooming them at an early age so that as they grow, we have these conversations. And knowing that you're the go-to person for your child, let them know that in case of anything, if they want to know anything, can they come to you and ask? And what helps now with these older children, I find it easier to parent older kids because you give them your experiences. Yes.
And let's look at the kids, especially those who are in college. Those 18, from 18. But unfortunately, kids are indulging in sex even before they are 18 years of age. And it's a good thing you've pointed out that parents now tell you, don't do this, don't do that, don't. There's no conversation, more or less like rules. You know, there is this, please don't. You see? And that's that. We're supposed to have a conversation so that you may even know as a parent the friends that your kid is going out with. And incidentally, when we talk about matters sex, parents are kind of conservative. And it's not the first time, the second time that you find your kid is already pregnant, and now the stigma starts, you see? But the parent never had that conversation with the kid. And incidentally, during our time, there were no phones.
Yes.
There's so much pornography in the devices that we have. And, unfortunately, even on television. And there's the internet. Kindly advise us as parents.
Here's the thing. Parents fear so much talking to their children about sex because they feel that if they provide information, they're promoting promiscuity, that they're providing a leeway for them to just tanga. This is not true. We say information is power, all right? So, and sex education is just not about the act of sex. And this is where we go wrong. Because ukisikia tu mtu amesema sex education, you're like, unaharibu mtoto. No. You start grooming them from a very early age. Age-appropriate advice, of course. When they are young, maybe 2 to 3, as we watch them, do you name their body parts as they are, or we simply say susu, dudu, and you know? All right. And do we also teach them these songs that these are my private parts, nobody should touch them? You know, simple guidelines. As they grow older now, they become curious. Let them lead you with their curiosity, but then you don't have to say much. This is the thing. They'll come and ask, where do babies come from? Okay. So create an interesting story that mommy has an egg, daddy has an egg, they come together, they make a baby. As they get older, they'll learn something at school. They'll come and tell you, but this egg, and then now you give them another scenario. As they get older, now you go giving more and more information, but it doesn't mean that you're giving them too much information. When they are, you know, in their adolescence, are you talking about how to take care of their bodies, you know, how to communicate consent, how to be able to say no and mean it, how to relate with people, you know, how to have their boundaries in place? Are we doing that? We are not, because we think that if we do this, we are giving them too much information. Mtoto amefika 17 ama 18. Are you giving them safety measures? Because I kid you not, by the time they are there, they're already having sex. Who are we lying to ourselves? Why are we lying to ourselves? So are you telling them how to protect themselves? If your house has the purity culture,
mostly
that's
you are telling
different.
them to not indulge.
We are living a lie.
And I remember somebody said, if you're given 15 million shillings to watch a video of your life together with your parents, a lot of people will say no. Because you have done so much and your parents think you're that angel and they wouldn't want anybody to know exactly what they're doing.
Exactly.
But their friends do know exactly. This is this and this and this and this. This person is taking weed. This person is having sex. This person is doing A, B, C, D.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the parent, you're there in the house each and every day, but you cannot see anything or hear anything.
You know, this is the thing about parents as well, and this is not an attack. I'm one of those parents. We want to pretend that everything is okay. We want to live in the perfect world. My child is good. My child cannot have sex. My child cannot move around with boys. My child cannot smoke weed. But if I'm not having these conversations with her, how will I know? You know, most of the time we leave our children and we don't know them.
It's true.
They have that favorite auntie who they go to who knows them very well, or that BFF who knows them inside out. Lakini wewe ukiulizwa hauna clue. The kind of version that you give of your child and the kind of version that their friend will give, or their sibling, or their auntie, or their favorite teacher at school, you're like, who am I living with? So we need to be intentional.
And still in the houses, we still have helpers. Some call them the maids. We still have the helpers who help us with the duties in the house. And a lot of parents have abdicated the parenting duties to these people. In as much as it could be a good thing, what if this person has ulterior motives? That kid could go through some of the worst experiences in his or her life.
Yeah.
And you are the parent.
Yes.
And you think everything is going on smoothly. Perhaps is it a good idea to ensure that not only do you ask your helper at home how the kid is, but anybody else that this kid is interacting with. Because at the end of the day, we do not want our kids to end up in some quite interesting positions.
You see, you've called them helpers, domestic managers, maids, whichever, is suitable. They're there to help you, all right? So this is your role, but you're delegating them to someone else, which is okay, because of course we need to go to work, we need to do stuff, we need to develop ourselves, because our lives don't end with parenting. But at the end of the day, do we take tabs to check how the child was, how their interaction was, Do you also take time to understand from the child how their day was, what they did, what made them happy, what made them sad, what made them smile, how was the interaction with this nanny? We don't take time. We assume that everything is okay. And again, I'm not throwing shade here, but we need to be intentional with the kind of relationship that you have with our children. The same way we have time for chama and sherehe and church and all that. Let us also make time every day to understand our children, how they have been, how they feel, the kind of thoughts they have. Simple 20 minutes per day, uninterrupted attention. That's enough. Yes. Don't just assume that they've had a good day. No. Ask. It shows concern. Yes.
I've been in two functions in about a week by the Chief Justice, latest one being yesterday, where she talked about cases of SGBV, sexual gender-based violence cases being on the rise, and especially now that we are in the holidays. And I do remember a couple of years back when COVID came, I think it was in 2020, we did not understand, in as much as we were disturbed as parents, our kids were also disturbed. A lot changed also in their lives, but we didn't actually take that as quite heavy, so that we may try and help them psychologically. How can we help our kids deal with some of the things that are disturbing them in their mind? At least as an adult, you can be able to understand how I'm feeling, something is wrong. But our kids might decide to bottle that up, and unfortunately, when they blow up, it's quite something serious.
God has given us instincts. Listen to your instincts in regards to that child. Of course, as a parent, you know the cycles of your child. You know the kind of personality they are. You know their temperament. You know their performance in school. You know their feeding habits, I hope. You know their sleeping patterns. I hope you guys know these things. So, of course, when some of these things changes in appetite, changes in interaction, or just general demeanor, you should be able to understand there's something going on with this child. As they get older, it gets hard for them, because as adults also, sometimes we don't even know how to express our emotions. So you can imagine for a child, it's more confusing. It's more chaotic. It's like, oh my God, things are just going haywire. So trust your instincts, because you can, if you're in your child's life, by then you will tell something is off, and then try to strike a conversation. And of course, if it's a matter of concern, that's when you can bring them to a therapist, and then you can be able to unearth whatever it is that is bothering this child. Yes.
Now let's go to something that has already happened. I've discovered my son is engaging in drugs, and I've discovered maybe my daughter is engaging in sex. As a parent, I remember back in the days we were being whipped, but that is behind us now. How do you punish a kid who already understands what he or she is doing?
Can I correct you?
Yes.
We no longer punish, we discipline.
Discipline?
Yes.
All right.
When we punish, we are trying to inflict pain. It's all about control. Why are you controlling? What do you have to control here?
How do you discipline?
We discipline them like this. Number one, it depends on whether you had these conversations before. Or you said that they already know that they have done something wrong.
Yes.
All right. So.
And you've discovered?
And I have discovered.
Because kids are doing drugs.
Yes.
They're doing sex.
Yes.
They're doing a lot of things together.
Do they know their consequences to whatever they have done if they're doing drugs? All right. Do they know that you can cut out, let's say, their time, the time they spend with their friends? Okay. Do they know that you will limit the kind of time they spend on electronics?
By grounding them?
Yes, by grounding them, all right? Do they know that of course now, if they were getting allowances, I'm imagining these are kids who understand and they get allowances from time to time. Do they know that when they do this, these allowances will be cut off for a while? And also, ultimately, can you take them for therapy so you can understand? Because every behavior is need-driven, all right? So if you understand that, you'll understand that this child is trying to communicate something, and this could be beyond you. So can you take them to a certified therapist to understand the reason for them engaging? It could be they're feeling misunderstood. It could be they have low self-esteem. It could be a cry for help. You won't know until you take time to to dig deeper and understand what is this child trying to communicate. Yes.
And conversations, parents hardly have conversation with their kids, where you find that maybe you have discovered something is not quite right. And instead of trying to plow and see exactly what is happening, parents will be like, na najua huyo jamaa mnaenda na yeye, ni kama wewe mmeanza kunywa pombe wewe. Last time nilisikia kuna harufu nisikia ukiruka. You know, the harshness, the tone that the parents have. So the kids are like, okay, my dad knows that I've started taking alcohol, so I'll be making sure that he doesn't know. So he tries to counter that, and these kids are so smart. I see my kids are quite smart.
They are. Oh yeah.
So how do you deal with that predicament as a parent?
Here's the thing. These people will test limits. They will experiment.
Yes. Far much than we did.
Oh my God, you know, the world is changing. We need to accept that.
Yeah.
And these humans are totally different from the kind of people we were. Remember also there's a lot of freedom involved. Us, we were so scared of our parents' wrath that we had to do what is right. These ones of nowadays, they are like, you know what, let me just test and see. Let me test and see, which is okay because that is how they learn. But can we have these conversations with them over and over again? I know it's tiring. Maybe it's so boring to keep repeating yourself over and over again. But you're the parent. You're the child's advocate. You notice they're pointing, tell them, I know. But you know also, repercussions of having drinks, of drinking and doing drugs and stuff is this. Usichoke kurudia. Siku moja atakukumbuka. Because that is your divine role here. Yes.
What are some of the weaknesses that you've seen, or there's some of the mistakes that you've seen parents do, and they are so basic that if they correct them, they can be better parents, and especially when the kids are home for holidays?
Number one, we want to parent our children the same way we were parented, which will not work. We followed the rules. We were to be seen and not to be heard. It's different nowadays. So you cannot just raise someone who's looking at you like a tree there. You ask them jump, they ask how high. No, these are opinionated humans. And it's okay because you want to raise people who are able to reason and assert themselves and speak their minds. Number two, expectations. We have very high expectations, sometimes unrealistic expectations on our children. Can we just minimize and just give age-appropriate expectations on these children? Number three, most of us are not doing our inner work. We are passing generational trauma from our childhood into our children's lives, which is totally wrong. I know sometimes we are not aware, but when you listen to people, you're like, you know, did you like the way you were parented? They tell you no. I'm like, so why are you doing the same thing to your child? Be the kind of parent you'd have wanted for your child, full stop. No, be the kind of parent you'd have wanted for you. You understand? Yes. So show up for your child the way you'd have wanted your parents to show up for you. Yeah.
And a lot of suicide cases that we're seeing. Back in our days, yes, we had issues, but the issues of kids taking their lives just because of either failing or a parent has done A, B, C, D. We had a case where a kid shot himself. These cases are on the increase, and back in the day we didn't usually have that. And yeah, you have said that a lot has changed, even the mental wellness. How do we identify severe cases in our kids? Because when a kid decides to take his or her life, it shows there has been a very deep issue underlying before she does or he did what he did. Yeah.
It's true that the suicide cases have gone higher. Back in the day, it was like maybe once in a couple of months that you'd hear someone has done something, and it was like, oh my God, aje, tulikuwa wapi? You see,
and even suicide was reserved for adults.
And it was very hard to have a child commit suicide, and even it was like, guy, like where were we? Because you know, kitambo there was that community aspect. Siku hizi every man for himself. But for a child to get to that point where they're taking their lives, it's like they've reached a dead end. They feel like nobody will understand. But there are always telltale signs. There are always telltale signs. It's just that sometimes we are too busy to notice, or sometimes we're in denial. But yes, if you notice, you'll just notice there was a pattern, there was a cycle there, and then they decided, you know what, nobody sees me, nobody affirms me, nobody validates me, I am meaningless. I mean, it would make no difference whether I was around or not, and they just decide to end their lives, which is sad. Yeah.
And the issues of a teenage pregnancy, I do remember back in our days when somebody got pregnant while in school, it was quite a big thing.
Yeah.
But now it has been, and especially compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic, where we had our kids for a year, and everyone was on matters COVID. We even forgot that we have a cardinal duty to ensure that our kids grow in the right way. And these are some of the cases that I do remember. Even yesterday, the Chief Justice asked the President that he would kindly request him to be a champion of kids, because for a very long time, we even have the Children's Act of 2022, just to underscore how things have changed and how the society now is moving in quite fast to ensure that we are trying to sort out some of these things. And as a parent, now we're talking about that's government, and we want champions, especially for SGBV. As parents, sometimes we are part of the problem. I'm talking about cases of FGM. In Kenya, we've seen even kids being taken to neighboring countries so that they may undergo that, and they are taken there by parents. We have seen cases of early marriages. Unfortunately, some of our communities do encourage that, and the government is moving in to ensure that our kids do not find themselves in such predicaments. What more can we do as a parent?
You see, once you understand that you're your child's number one advocate, you'll do everything necessary. An advocate is a person who stands up for your rights, right? So this child has their own rights. What are we doing about it? Are we empowering them with this information, or we are like, no, they will learn at school? Because that's what we do. We are like, this topic is too complicated. Wataambiwa na walimu kule. These difficult conversations that we avoid are the ones that lead to a lot of dysfunctionality in the long term. Yes. So we need sex education is something that is supposed to be in the curriculum.
Let's keep our kids busy.
Let's keep our kids busy. Let us have routines for them. Let us enroll them in, we've got a lot of camps, kids camps over the holidays. Let's do that. Let's have a chore list for them. From as early as 3 years. Mtoto wa 3 years anaweza toa kikombe kwa meza, and they enjoy when they are asked to help around. So let us involve them in our day-to-day activities, so that we also don't raise children who have no skills at all, because we are trying to pamper them in.
And us as parents, the responsibilities that we have to give our kids. Talking about, for example, right now my kids are at home. If I need something done, I'll hire somebody. Mostly we take them to mashambani there, just like what used to happen to us during our time. And I remember 20 years ago when I was getting my driver's license, my parent told me, yes, fine, it's okay, I'll give you the money, but I need you to plow a certain length of the shamba, or plant cassavas, or do something. But unfortunately now we are giving our kids a lot of free time. Something that we should be engaging our kids in each and everything that we do. Some parents, they do take their kids to the businesses that they do, and they assist, and especially now. But others, they just hire. I will hire somebody to plow that land, and then give my kid the money to go and do a course or something. Do you think perhaps keeping them this busy could assist?
Of course, we say an idle mind is the devil's workshop. I mean, clearly. So if we're able to involve them, let them just do something with their time. Of course, have time to rest and rejuvenate, but also keep them busy, keep them occupied. Give them time to play, because of course play is the language of a child. So let them play, let them interact with their peers, but at the same time let them not have so much free time. I like the aspect that you brought in of parents taking their children to their businesses, because now you give them skills. You're just not raising someone who's helpless. We also need to put into consideration the fact that we have different socioeconomic status. So there are people who can afford to hire a nanny, a driver, a cook, a gardener, a askari, and all that. But those ones are the ones who can afford to just pay for activities for their children. If not, then involve them. Let them cook, let them clean, let them iron, let them do those household chores, let them spread their beds, let them help around the house. Yes.
All right. And we're going to continue with this conversation, but for now, let's cross over to the KEPSHA annual conference, where the PS Education Belly of Kipsang is currently speaking. Let's first of all listen in.
For the support that you gave us, and myself specifically, when I served my first tour of duty in this sector for 8 years that I was here. I would also want to look forward to working with you as I start my second tour, and I would want to call upon all of you to thank His Excellency the President for giving me an opportunity to work with you as teachers and to work with our children. The biggest thing that you can do and the biggest opportunity that you can be given is to be part of those people who invest in the future. Because what we do as teachers is investing in the future. And therefore, allow me, and I also call upon all of us to thank His Excellency the President for having given me this opportunity to co-create our children with you. Because God gave an opportunity to only one person to co-create human beings. And that person, God gave an opportunity to co-create human beings are the teachers. Because everybody around are what they are because of the teacher. You could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, including our own president, because we, the teachers, co-created everybody around. Including ourselves, we co-created ourselves as teachers. So once again, I would want to most sincerely stand with you as the co-creators of the humans that are in today. I would want also to thank your leadership, led by your chairman, who came before the Presidential Working Party and did a wonderful presentation. I'm saying wonderful because I attended that session as a friend of the Working Party. I've always been a friend of our Presidential Working Party, and when your team was doing a presentation, I was in attendance, and I can assure you, your team and your leadership did a fantastic job in that presentation. And I can assure you that we took into cognizance what they told us. And while at that, we are all aware the pronouncements of our president on the interim report of the Presidential Working Party. And the most critical thing that all of us as Kenyans were waiting was the question of transition. And the president has pronounced himself on the question of transition, and that our children will be hosted in our primary school at the junior school level, at the junior secondary school level. As we acknowledge this as heads of our primary schools, I would want to bring to your attention the responsibilities that it carries to domicile junior school in our primary schools. I hope and pray that you have started internalizing what that means. It's a huge responsibility, and we shall work with you the journey in realizing this particular pronouncement of the president. I will be asking you as our head teachers to start validation, verification of data of our schools. We would want to appreciate each and every of our 23,000 public schools so that we can know and be sure that each one of us has capacity to host the junior school. And where we think that we can share the responsibility with our neighboring school, let's say that. One thing I would want to appreciate also is that my officers at the ministry have informed me that almost 50% of your schools have produced a secondary school. And therefore, it will make it easy for us to share facilities. And such
Education Principal Secretary Dr. Belio Kipsang, live at the KEPSHA meeting, live from Mombasa. And they are touching on a number of issues in the education sector that is currently undergoing reforms that we'll be touching a little bit on a little bit later. Just in case you joined us, this is KBC News Check. Let's have a quick break. We'll be right back.
Make transactions anywhere in the world with the NCBA Visa card and stand a chance to win big. Join the FIFA World Cup 2022 when you win an all-expenses-paid trip for you and your +1 to watch 2 games. Or win exciting weekly prizes that will make your FIFA viewing experience super duper. All it takes is a swipe or a tap to pay 2,000 Kenya shillings or more with your NCBA Visa debit or credit card. The more you swipe or tap to pay, the higher your chances of winning with 1 point for every 2,000 Kenya shillings spent. Don't miss out. NCBA. Go for it.
Kupata Waibrania kama skiza tune yako, bonyeza *811 *817 #.